Hi, my name's Greg Valerio and I am involved with the City to City events because I am very committed to, well, as a follower of Christ and a Christian, how can we develop our relationship with God and go deeper into God, as well as see that sort of multiplication effect, our activity in society for justice and peace become more relevant and more innovative. So I am concerned on one level that talking about action and activity for activity's sake can often lead us into project mentalities which ultimately lead to unsustainable initiatives and personal burnout. So over the years, as I've worked in my sphere, which has primarily been the jewellery sphere, I've really had to look carefully at how I develop my own spirituality and my own resting and abiding in Christ. And I think really the inspiration for all action in society, I believe, should flow from an imitation of Christ. That issue of formation in our lives that leads to us becoming more Christ-like. If we can achieve that through abiding in Christ, as John 15 says, then ultimately we create a reservoir within ourselves of sustainable spirituality. If we abide in Christ, I think the anxiety that often creates is, will that lead to inaction? And in my experience in the jewellery industry and in pioneering within the fair trade gold and transparency and traceability in what is effectively a very corrupt industry, I have discovered that we can end up in a situation where, as we abide in Christ, we're actually abiding in the very creative fabric of the universe. So it's impossible to become inactive. If you rest in a creative pool, creativity will stem from that. But it is very much a question of abiding in Christ first, and the creativity, the innovation, the progression, the inspiration for change will flow out of that abiding and that resting. It has to. God is dynamic. And if you rest in God, you will be dynamic. So I think innovation is very much a part of the fruit of the abiding. And for me, that is critical. And I think it also leads very much to then us being intentional about how we outwork our practice in society. And that intentionality, again, must, I believe, be rooted in that abiding in Christ. If I understand who I am, and I understand who I am in the light of Jesus and in the light of Christ, then how I engage the world becomes far sharper, far clearer, and far more intentional. I understand my sphere. I understand my sphere of influence. I understand where my boundaries are and where my parameters are. As an individual, I can't do everything. Therefore, I have to be specific and targeted and focused on where I invest my time and the genius that God has given me. So as we practice contemplation, as we practice activism, as we become contemplative activists, we can, I believe, create the axis for radical change. And by radical I mean not political radicalism, but I mean spiritual humility, and I mean transformation of society and the emancipation of the oppressed. Our radicalism must be rooted in the imitation of Christ. So that's why I'm involved with City to City, because it's a great event. It fosters conversation. It generates genuine and innovative thinking. But I'm hoping and praying that as we come together on these events, we can actually develop our internal spirituality as well. And as we rest in Christ, we will become more socially transformational. Thank you.